All right, everybody, we're going to get started. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jen Davis. I am a MAPS coach. I also own a real estate team in Springfield, Missouri. So I am in the middle of the Midwest. Our market is still moving. We've kind of got the tale of two markets, right? We've got the stuff that's still selling day one on market, and then we've got the stuff that's sitting around a little bit. So today, we are going to jump into the mindset and mechanics to have a really successful next year. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of mindset, yet we are going to get into the mechanics because I want everybody to have something that they get to take away today that they can implement into their business. So the head down, heart up, feet forward is actually a quote that Gary Keller gave me. I think it was the very last meeting I was in as the vice president of MAPS coaching. So super excited to dig into that idea, what my takeaways were from that at the end of this call. So we've got about 30 minutes together. In the event that you have questions, please pop it in the chat. My email address, if you need anything, is Jen Davis, one N, Jen Davis, KW at gmail.com. Okay, so we're going to get started. So the idea behind this 30 minutes was this idea of speed to value. So we've spent a lot of time in the last year talking about the different things that have happened with buyer agency, with representing sellers, and making some adjustments and making sure that you as agents know what your value is. Now, I'm not going to go back through how do we present value. I am going to suggest a few topics to you to think about this idea of speed to value. What we want to learn today are the skills to connect and build lasting relationships. I believe that the quality of the relationships that you have will determine the length and success of your career. So this idea of speed to value is this idea of how quickly can I get into relationship with someone? How quickly can I add value to them? How quickly can I be a resource for them? Because I know when I can be helpful, when I can answer a question, when I can give them knowledge, they have confidence moving forward with me. They also feel really good about it being a relationship. It's not a sales relationship then, it's a relationship. And so we're going to talk a lot about this idea of how do we build relationships and how do we connect with people. So I presented to a region recently, and the question was asked of me from our regional director, what do I believe the future of real estate looks like? And we're going to dig into that today, and we're going to talk about value. We're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about mechanics. But here is my core belief. My core belief is that conversations build the relationship that dictates your message. So diving into that, here's what that means to me. If conversations build the relationship, how do we do that? How do we build great relationships with conversation? Well, we do it through preparation. We prepare for the conversations we're going to have. When I look at the idea of a buyer, a strategy session, or I look at the idea of a listing appointment, many of you that are on this screen might be new to real estate, but many of you have been doing this a long time. When was the last time that you really prepared a conversation? When was the last time you practiced it? I believe that the quality of your conversation is a direct correlation to what your conversion rate is. Conversion is the hardest level skill set. There are a couple of points in a transaction where we find conversion, right? When we set the appointment till we get it to meet, and when we get him to meet to get him to sign, and we get them to sign to actually get to the closing table. So this is where that quality of conversation is going to show up. There's a book by Susan Scott, and it's Fierce Conversations. And she says that conversations are the relationship. I believe that, but I really believe that the quality of your conversation will build the relationships that you want to build so that you have long-term success. We all want repeat referral business. We all want people to tell their friends and family to utilize us. We all want that person that we helped 3 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago to come back to us. But the conversations that we're willing to have are going to dictate the relationships that we get to have. So when I look at the conversations build the relationship, we do that by preparing for the conversations. I don't wing it. Phil Jones teaches us that the worst time to prepare for something to say is the moment you're going to say it. In my career, I've sold over 2,000 buyers' homes. There were periods of time that I was selling more than 200 homes per year to buyers. Gary Keller talks about that it takes 10,000 times to get to mastery. So by that standard, I'm not yet at mastery, which means that every day I prepare for conversations that I'm going to have with buyers and sellers. I practice them. I role play them. I don't practice on the client. I practice with other agents. I practice with my team. We talk about it. Because what I want is I want to have a quality conversation. I want to be present in the moment with the people I'm talking to. In relationships, we want to go vertical in them. Vertical means I know a lot about you. I can see Kim Johnson on my screen. So Kim, if you and I were in relationship and I wanted to get a chance to work with you, I would want to know about your family. I would want to know about your friends. Do you have pets? Do you have kids? Right? What's your story? Because if I know your story, it doesn't matter to me when Kim buys or sells because I'm part of her story. I don't care if Kim buys in 18 days or 18 months or 18 years. If I get into relationship with Kim, I can add value to her. I know what makes her tick. I know what motivates her. So when you start building out your databases, what we want to make sure is what other information do you have? It's not simply about the 4 pieces of information, the name, the phone number, the email address, and the physical address. It's when's your birthday? What's going on in your life? I want notes in that database so I can go vertical in them. Somebody in the chat asked what book I mentioned, Fierce Conversations. It's a great book, talks a lot about building relationships through conversations. What's your touch plan for relationships, right? We often talk about a 36 touch. It's too much to go into today, but when we look at that touch plan and we look at having quarterly calls and sending emails and sending text messages and doing all of these things, when was the last time you looked at the messages that you were sending out? We're going to spend some more time on that. But that touch plan, that's how we build relationships. We talk to people. It's not always a call of, do you know somebody that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Lots of times it's a care call. Jill, how are you? What's going on in your life? What are your plans over the next couple of weeks? I'm not asking for business right now. I'm asking about your life. I'm asking, how can I come alongside of you in the story? I'm making care calls. I'm intentional with it. If I'm in relationship with you, I'm watching on social media, what are the milestones in your life, right? I'm commenting on it. I'm asking questions about it. When I go into the conversation, you're the most important person I'm talking to. I'm not looking at my watch. I'm not looking over your shoulder. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm being intentional with the time that we have together. Messaging. When we look at messaging, the reason we practice conversations, the reason we look at our emails, the reason we look at our text messages is because sending or saying the wrong message to more people doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually help us. So if we're making a lot of calls, right, in my coaching relationships, I'll have coaching clients say, Jen, I made the 20 contacts, I made 40 contacts, I made 60 contacts, and I'm still not moving the needle. My response as a coach is not for them to make more calls. My response as a coach is to make better calls. What are we saying, right? What are we practicing? What are we preparing? This is why I said on the first slide, I believe that conversations build relationships and relationships dictate your messaging. We send out newsletters in hopes that people are going to respond to them. Great. Would you read your newsletter? Would you click on the video that you're posting? I hope so. right? I hope so. We're spending all of this time and all of these resources on video and newsletter and social media posts. But what we've got to look at is, I don't believe that macro messaging works anymore. I believe that the agents that are in the business and are successful have micro messages. If I've gone vertical in the relationship with Kim, and Kim is a first-time home buyer, my messaging to her is very, very different than it would be to David, who's buying his 10th investment property. But if I send David information about being a first-time home buyer, he doesn't think I know him at all. I get a lot of your newsletters. I somehow am in a lot of databases for agents. And do you know what I don't want to see? Open houses outside of Springfield, Missouri. I'm not interested. What it tells me is you're sending mass messages to your whole database. I'm not even in there as an agent or a MAPS coach. I'm in there the same way the rest of your database is in there. So as we look at this idea of conversations build relationships and relationships dictate the message, we're never going to know the right message if we're not paying attention to the relationship. So we want to make sure that we're matching the market in our database. We have tags, right? We have buckets of different types of leads, making sure that we're preparing our message in a way that feels specific to the receiver. The person receiving the message is the one that you want to move forward. So if you're the giver of the message, it's up to you how it's delivered. And so if we're delivering the wrong message to more people, it's actually working against us. So as we look at the mindset and mechanics of business and how do we have a long career, what I want you to start with is, when was the last time I practiced a conversation? When was the last time I really prepared for an appointment? When was the last time I looked at what I'm sending out to people, and would I read it? Would I look at it? Would I watch the video? Future of real estate, technology, right? This is not a class on ChatGPT, right? Or Otter AI or any of the other tools that we hopefully are all starting to utilize. Technology isn't going to replace us as an agent. Technology is meant to be used as leverage for the 80% activities, for the activities that actually have a very low ROI. It can help you with your messaging, but you still have to be the messenger. You still have to build the relationship. So technology is never going to replace the agent as long as the agent utilizes technology for what it's for. It's not meant to replace the relationship. It's meant to leverage the activities off of your plate so you can spend more time building the relationship. There's a quote from Jim Collins that good is the enemy of great. And I have a lot of coaching clients or agents in our market center that will say, Jen, I want to be receptive. I want to be disruptive, right? Like, I want to change the face of real estate. I want to do something that's wild and different. Awesome. The number one thing that you can do to be disruptive is to make sure your systems are great, not just good. Your checklists are great, not just good. Where are the friction points? Where are the friction points in your presentation? Where are the friction points in your communication? When you get the same question multiple times from clients, that's when we have to look up and say, the way we're giving information isn't working. It's not their fault that they've had to ask us 3 times what happens after the inspection. It's ours as an agent. The number one way that I think you can be disruptive is to look at your systems, your presentation, and your follow-up and say, what am I doing that's just coasting? What am I doing that's just, I'm going to kick this can down the road a little bit? What could I do instead? Right? One of an example of that is we make calls every Friday, and Fridays are our non-update update. Mary Cheatham King's team is the one that taught me this, but we call on Monday and we say, or on Friday, and I would say, hey, Kim, it's Jen. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, we turn the inspection report over to the listing agent. Appraiser is scheduled to go out next week. Seller's got 10 days in our market to respond to that inspection repair request that we sent over. It's going to be really quiet for the next few days. As soon as I hear something, I'm going to call you. Did I tell Kim anything that I've not already told her? No. But what I did is I called her before she sat all weekend and worried about why she hadn't heard back from the seller. I got ahead of it. I talked to her before she thought, oh gosh, the seller's not going to fix any of these things. I don't want this house anymore, right? I'm getting ahead of it. That's the difference between good to great. Good is we send an email of here's what happens next. Great is every Friday I'm going to talk to you, whether I know anything or not. We can reimagine our conversations. This is that messaging piece. What are we saying that maybe really worked a year ago that doesn't work anymore? When are we asking for referrals? Are we asking for referrals? Are we asking for reviews? If we're not asking for reviews, I have a pretty good idea of what our customer service is, right? If I don't want to ask Jill for a 5-star review, it's because I know I didn't give her 5-star customer service. So what I've got to look at is how do I have these conversations? How do I build my systems? How do I provide so much value that not only am not hesitant to ask Jill for a review, I'm excited to ask her because I know she's going to say great stuff. Okay, so here's where we get into this, right? If I'm looking at future of real estate and I'm looking at why I believe some agents are uber successful and some are just okay. I do believe it has to do with the quality of the relationship. I believe it has to do with the quality of the conversation. I was sitting in a meeting with Gary, and it was probably end of May, beginning of June, and I've often heard him say, "Head down, heart up." What I'd never heard him say before, though, was "head down, heart up, feet forward." And it was a blip, right? It was a blip in a conversation. It was a blip in a mastermind, and I sat with it and I thought about it, and I thought, that's different. That's different than anything I've ever heard him say before. And I've thought about the number of people that I've coached. I've thought about the number of homes I've helped people buy, right, and sell. I thought about the number of agents I've had on our team. And this time of year can be a challenge. Anytime there's a shift in the market, whether that's an actual shift in the market or a seasonal shift in the market, we can get our heads down, right? We can get in our heads. We can take our eye off the ball. And so this idea of head down, here's what it means to me. Head down is I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the work that I know that I need to do in the order I know I need to do it. Everyone that knows me knows we were going to talk about lead generation at some point during this 30 minutes, right? We can't escape it. Lead generation is the work that we need to do. And it's the number one thing that we avoid doing. So when I look at this idea of head down, it's doing the work. It's cutting out the noise. What's noise? Noise for some people are the holidays, right? This is a great time for some. It's a really hard time for others. Noise could be an election cycle that we just came out of, right? It's noise. Social media can be a noise. Your family can be a noise. Your friends can be a noise. You know what else can be a noise? Alcohol, sugar, lack of exercise, just scrolling through social media, not actually reading a book, not actually listening to a podcast. So when I look at this and I think, why do people not do the work? It's because they're listening to the noise. They're so focused on what everybody else is doing, whether that's social media or going to holiday parties or it's cold outside, right? I don't really want to work out. I don't, like, I'm just being honest. I actually don't feel like working out right now because it is cold outside. But you look at it and you're like, I've got all of these things that can take my attention unless I wake up every day and I do the work that I need to do in the order I need to do it. The faster in the day that we can get into dollar producing activities, the less anxiety we have. Proven fact. You're like, who proved it? I did. I mean, I've done this a long time. So when we look at how do I know it decreases anxiety? Because I've watched it time and time and time again. I've had the ability to see that the people that come in, that cut out the noise, that make their calls, that have the conversations, that build the relationships, they're not nervous about what's happening in the market because they controlled what they could control. I can't control an election. I can't control the weather. I can't control interest rates. I can't control lots and lots of things, but I can control when I show up. I can control how I show up. I can control what I eat, what I drink, when I go to bed, when I wake up. Do I exercise, not exercise? There are loads of things that I can control in an effort to put my head down to do the work that I need to do in the order that I need to do it. When we look at this idea of head down, I'll have people say to me, I'm doing all the things. It's my least favorite thing for someone to say to me, just so you know, doing all the things. Nah, you're not. Because if you're doing all the things, something will be working. You might be doing a lot of things, but you're not doing all the things. So if I were coaching you one-on-one and you were like, I don't know, I'm in a season of loss right now. I don't know what my next step is. I do feel like I'm doing all the things, Jen, and I don't know what the next right thing is. An exercise I would take you through is, when was the last time you were winning? Like really winning, personal life, professional life, when were you really winning? Let's go do that. Who were you talking to? What were you eating? What were you drinking or not drinking, right? What calls were you making? Who were you talking to? What were you surrounding yourself with? It could be as simple as looking back and saying the last 3 clients that I helped that I liked came from this source. Cool. Let's start your messaging there. That's who we talk to. That's who we tailor our message to. We get very granular because we can control that. We can control who we call. We can control what we say. We can control a text message. So my coaching to you, one to many, would be, when was the last time you're winning? And if you're in a winning season right now, awesome, document it. Document it so that next time you're in a losing season, you know what to come back to. What time are you waking up? What are you having for breakfast? What's your exercise routine look like? Who are your mentors? Who are your coaches? Who are your teammates? That's this idea of head down. The analogy that I would use with agents that tell me I'm doing all the things is that they're walking into a Little Caesars, pizza, right? And they want a hot and ready pizza. And they want to pick up the hot and ready pizza, right? A hot and ready buyer, hot and ready seller, right? A come list me. They want the hot and ready pizza. But what they're not taking into consideration is that somebody made the dough. Somebody put the sauce on. Somebody put the cheese on. Somebody put the toppings on, and then they put it in the oven. Hot and ready pizza isn't just hot and ready. Somebody actually prepped it. If you're not prepping your leads, if you're not making the dough, putting the sauce on, putting the cheese on, putting the pepperoni, right? I don't know who wouldn't eat pepperoni. It's sad for people that don't like pepperoni. But if you're not doing those things, you're never going to have a hot and ready pizza. So my suggestion to you, this is the mechanics. Talk to people, build relationships with them through conversation so that you get to be part of their story so you can help them buy or sell. But if you don't ever make the dough, it never gets easier. It never gets easier than it does today. Okay. You're like all looking at me like, hey, let's move on from lead generation. I'm uncomfortable. I still don't want to do it. Cool. Heart up. We all got into this business, I believe, because we have a heart for people. We have a mission to help people. We have a mission to make an impact, right? Money is a great byproduct. You can make a lot of money selling real estate, but I don't really believe there are very few people that I know that got into this with the idea of I'm going to make a lot of money and I don't really want to help anyone. The idea was we've got a mission to help people. I've sold over 2,000 houses to buyers. That's not mentioning listings or anything else that I've done. 2,000. I've never one time convinced somebody to buy a house they didn't want to buy. I have never one time convinced somebody to sell a house that they didn't want to sell. There have been a lot of changes in our industry in the last year. The heart up for me is be proud of what you do. Be proud of who you are. It's not anything to be ashamed of or to think, gosh, I've just not been doing it right. If you look at that the future of your business is relationships and you have a heart for people, that's the heart up. Whether it's working out for you right now, whether you're in a winning season or a losing season, whether you've got 35 under contract or 0 under contract, whether you've sold 1 house or 1,000 houses, heart up. We help people buy and sell their largest asset. Be wildly passionate about helping people. I will tell you, I don't care if I ever go into another house that's not mine again. I don't need to see anymore. I'm good. But I'm wildly interested in the story of the people. So I'm not going to sell any more houses, even though I don't want to see the house, right? I want to see the people. I want to be part of their story. I want to build a relationship. When you're wildly interested and invested in helping people, always works out. Next one, feet forward. Oh, we've got 3 minutes left. I'm even going to end on time. Madeline with the MAP staff is going to be so happy with me that I'm ending on time. Usually I go over. So feet forward. When I look at what do I think Gary meant by this, right? Because this is my perspective of his saying. Feet forward for me is that we keep moving. We keep adapting. We adjust our message. We don't send the same message we sent a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The adjustment is, it doesn't mean I'm saying chase shiny objects. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that the things that we have done over and over and over and over again, we still want to improve. If they stop working, we have the ability to see that it stopped working and make the adjustment. We started with the micro messaging versus macro messaging. I believe that's the future of real estate, micro messaging. If I believe that, then I believe that the same message that I sent out 3 years ago, there's no way it can possibly work because the market is different. I'm different. The client is different. Even if that client from 3 years ago has never bought with me, they're different than they were 3 years ago. Their story is different than it was 3 years ago. And where I see ego show up is here in the feet forward. This is when people are like, I mean, I've always done it this way. It works for me, Jen. Or, yeah, I don't really want to door knock, or I really don't want to make 20 contacts a day, or I really don't want to do open houses. They've not ever really worked for me. Cool. They will or they won't, whatever you think, right? So you have to look at your ego and say, where is my ego showing up in my business? Where do I need to have some emotional intelligence around what's working and not working? And the question that I often get here is like, well, Jen, how do you know if ego is showing up? When I stop listening to other people's ideas, when I stop being coachable, when someone tells me something, I'm like, I know I tried it. Nope, that didn't work. I did that 5 years ago. It didn't work. That for me is ego because I have tried a lot of things. I've tried a lot of things that don't work. But guess what? Maybe I didn't try it well. Maybe I didn't have the right team at that time to do it, right? Maybe I didn't have the right system. Maybe I didn't have the right message. Maybe I wasn't the right person at that point. So I think when we look at this idea of head down, heart up, feet forward, it's we do the work. We do the work that we know we need to do in the order we know we need to do it. We're proud of who we are, and we have a mission for people, and we're wildly interested in their story. And feet forward, I'm going to keep adapting. I'm going to keep changing. I'm going to keep growing, and I'm going to keep learning. Those of you that are on here, I know that you're going to keep learning because you're here. It's the week before a pretty major holiday that I understand not everyone is celebrating, but this is the time of year that we tend to shut down a little bit. And the fact that you're in one of these classes and you're learning means your ego is perfectly fine. You're willing to learn. You're willing to do these things. So I'm going to end this call and I am going to say, I wish you all a very, very amazing end of the year. We're wrapping up 2024. Happy New Year for 2025. We are here at MAPS to support you however you need. Recording will come out at some point. Madeline put it in the chat, probably 24 to 48 hours. Yes, ish. It's a holiday. If you need something, my email again is jendaviskw@gmail.com. I am proud of you. I'm proud of you that you're here. I'm excited for you. I'm always a resource. So whatever you need, we're here to help. Whether that's group coaching, one-on-one coaching, or just if you need a friend, I can be your phone a friend. So Happy New Year, everybody.